After several defeats in a row, the brother of today's hero of our video brought him a big chain from work and advised him to put it on to intimidate the enemy. Since then, this fighter has been undefeated and has worn this powerful prop in his mixed martial arts career. This idea came from the younger brother of American fighter Quinton Ramon Jackson, better known as Quinton Rampage Jackson. Let's now take a look at how he got into MMA and discuss his successful career with pride. Rampage began his journey in mixed martial arts with wrestling. He was making progress and wanted to practice this discipline professionally, but discovered mixed martial arts. He was expelled from college due to a fight with a teammate, so he fully focused on training. Impressed by the success of other MMA fighters, Jackson decided to try his hand at the sport. He has an impressive record of 11 wins and 1 loss fighting for smaller U.S. promotions, including King of the Cage, Gladiator, Challenge, and Dangerzone. Jackson is remembered by fans for lifting and throwing his opponents to the ground, confirming his Rampage moniker. In 2001, he signed a contract with the major Japanese mixed martial arts organization Pride, which featured the best fighters from all over the world. An interesting fact is that before his debut, he was announced as a homeless person to stir up fan interest. Pride promoted Jackson as a bum. Quinton came as an unknown fighter and made real headway in the world of mixed martial arts. His debut fight was directly against the most prominent Japanese fighter and promotion superstar Kazushi Sakuraba. He was famous for defeating 4 representatives of the Great Gracie clan in a row and bore the proud nickname Gracie Hunter. Sakuraba also came from wrestling and had an impressive MMA record of 12-3-1. After the gong, Quinton started with a powerful right cross, but the Japanese fighter got away from the blow and carried out a takedown. After a short parterre, Rampage got up and several times lifted Sakuraba above him and hit the ground. The crowd cheered at such slams. The Japanese fighter blocked all of Jackson's attempts to develop his ground and pound. Kazushi went to the armbar, but the American picked up the Japanese fighter and at first almost threw him out of the ring and then hit the floor. Sakuraba again landed a takedown and almost made a Kimura. Quinton broke free and made a bad throw and gave his back. Sakuraba exploited this mistake and performed a rear naked choke. At the 6th minute, he tapped in surrender. The first fight in Pride was unsuccessful for Jackson, but his spectacular performance attracted the attention of fans and organizers. Therefore, 3 months later, he again entered the ring, the Pride 17 Championship Chaos Tournament, against the Japanese fighter, Yuki Ishikawa. The Japanese wrestler had experience in judo and karate, and this fight was his debut in mixed martial arts. In the first seconds of the fight, the fighters entered into an exchange of punches, where Rampage was more successful. Quinton had a beautiful slam and tried to lift his opponent off the ground. The parterre had a couple of killer knees to the head of the Japanese fighter. The fighters got into a stance and Jackson pinned Ishikawa to the ropes and knocked him out with a deuce of heavy crosses. In the 2nd minute of the fight, Rampage got his first victory in Pride, and Yuki Ishikawa had another fight in which he also lost and no longer competed in MMA. In December 2001, Quinton competed in the next Pride tournament. His opponent was the local fighter, Daihiro Matsui. This fight lasted only 14 seconds. The first blow was the last. Matsui decided to make a pass to the legs, but Jackson intercepted him by the body and threw a powerful knee in the opponent's groin. Rampage was disqualified, and accordingly, the Japanese fighter was awarded the victory. A shameful defeat for Jackson, which unnecessarily spoiled his early statistics. 4 months later, Rampage Jackson again entered the ring under the Pride banner against the Japanese fighter Masaki Satake, nicknamed Monster Prince. He was one of the most successful karatekas in Japan and won the world title against the great Andy Hugh. Satake also had a successful kickboxing career behind him, where he defeated such fighters as Gary Goodrich and Kimo Leopoldo, and was a multiple world champion in this discipline. But his career in MMA did not work out for him, and he had a negative record of 1-6-1. The round began with a protracted clinch, where Quinton dominated with punches to the body and knees. Then Rampage had a beautiful slam and turned on his ground and pound from side control, including numerous body shots and knees to the head. Jackson tried to improve his dominant position and even got into a full mount, but not for long. The long stalls exhausted both fighters. Satake eventually managed to get up, but the American grabbed his waist and performed a German suplex, causing the Japanese fighter to land on his head. The fight was immediately ruled a TKO victory for Rampage, and Satake was taken to the hospital, where he was diagnosed with a cracked skull and severely damaged neck. The Monster Prince performed again, where he lost again and hung up the gloves on a nail. In September 2002, Quinton fought experienced Ukrainian fighter Igor Vovchanchin, nicknamed Ice Cold. The first round began with a protracted clinch, where both fighters were equally active. After the clinch, Vovchanchin threw a good high kick to the head and added a series of hooks. The Ukrainian jumped on Jackson and went into the guillotine, but Rampage immediately held a powerful slam. Ice Cold flew headlong into the ground, but did not let go of the American's neck. From side control, Quinton moved to a full mount and brought down his opponent with his ground and pound. Then another slam was performed by Jackson, and again control on the ground by the American. Rampage stopped the fight. Jackson's next rival, under the auspices of Pride, was the talented wrestler Kevin Randleman. His nickname was The Monster, and he was on a 5-win streak, 3 of which were in Pride. Quinton knew how to play the audience and came out with an angry face and howling like a wolf. There was a lot of clinching, where the fighters were trying to land a takedown and land more punches. There were good knees from Jackson and left hooks from Randleman. The fighters both received a yellow card for inactivity in the clinch and continued the fight in the standing position. Kevin tried to make a pass to the legs, but Quinton got away from the pass and from the tie clinch delivered a powerful knee to the head and added a left hook. Randleman was driven and fell to the ground. Rampage landed several heavy finishing blows, and the referee crossed his arms over his head to signal the end of the bout. The Monster lost, and after this fight, his career began to decline. And in the next 13 fights, he won only 3. In June 2003, Quinton entered the ring again at Pride 26, bad to the bone, against Russian Sambo fighter Mikhail Ilyukin. He is a former champion of Eurasia and a silver medalist at the World Championship in fighting without rules. He won victories over such fighters as Igor Vovchanchin, Tsuyoshi Kusaka, and Randy Couture. Before the start of this fight, Jackson also decided to joke and handed the referee a yellow card. At the beginning of the round, there was an unsuccessful slam from Jackson. A little later, Ilyukin went to the guillotine from the clinch, but Quinton managed to escape from the grip. After an unsuccessful Americana performed by the Russian, the fighters rose to the rack, and Rampage first hit with a heavy knee, then with an uppercut, and then completely pushed Ilyukin out of the ring ropes. Jackson later took the Russian fighter to the ground again with a left hook, and added a tight knee to the head on the ground. The fighters again found themselves on the ground, and Quinton from side control first tried to get his knee to the opponent's head, but then he threw a powerful knee to the liver, and Ilyukin surrendered. After this fight, he had 2 more fights, in which he won and ended his career. 2 months later, Rampage Jackson fought Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter Murilo Bustamante in the quarterfinals of the Pride Middleweight Grand Prix. His last fight was a successful defense of the UFC middleweight title, but for financial reasons, he moved to Pride and was stripped of the title. The Brazilian had a good 9-1-1 record. In the first 10 minutes, Murilo tried to perform an armbar, but Jackson skillfully twisted and landed a slam. Quinton later avoided the submission again and struggled out of the guillotine. In the standing position, the fighters exchanged fire, mainly with single blows from a distance, and there were few significant blows. Until the end of the round, Bustamante tried to drag his opponent into the parterre. The second round went smoothly. In the exchange of punches in the standing position, the situation was approximately equal, but Jackson was still working with low kicks, hitting his knee to the body. There was a bit of control on the ground from the American, but everything went smoothly. The fighters spent half of the final round standing. Both hit and were active, but there were no heavy hits. On the ground, Rampage controlled, but the Brazilian stopped all attempts at the ground and pound, and he was also unable to hold the reception. Quinton won by split decision. Murilo Bustamante finished with a -4-5 record for Pride. In the semifinals of the Pride Grand Prix, Jackson faced American prospect Chuck the Iceman Liddell. His record in MMA was 13-2, and he defeated such famous fighters as Alistair Overeem, Vitor Belfort, and Kevin Randleman. In the first half of the first round, Liddell worked more from the opening seconds and worked mainly with his hands. Quinton countered well and landed several powerful jabs and wide right hooks. In the second half of the round, Jackson landed some good attacks with a series of hooks and took the initiative. He began to put pressure and was ahead in significant blows. In the second round, the attackers fought a little in the clinch, and after Quinton's slam, ended up on the ground. Rampage turned on his fast ground and pound and unleashed a lot of accented body shots to Chuck. It was evident that Liddell could barely stand them, and in the 4th minute, his corner threw in the towel. But these guys will meet again in 4 years. Chuck, after this fight, won the UFC title, defended it 4 times, and lost it in a fight with Jackson. But more on that in the next video. In November 2003, in the final of the Pride Grand Prix, Rampage fought with the Brazilian puncher Vanderlei Silva. He had never lost in the last 14 fights and defeated such eminent fighters as Dan Henderson and 3 times Kazushi Sakuraba. Silva was known for his aggressive fighting style, replete with strikes, including knees from the tie clinch. It all started with an unfriendly stare-down before the start of the fight. The round began with an attempt at a standing guillotine from Silva. Quinton wanted to land a slam, but got caught in a tight grip around the neck. Rampage was able to escape from that grip, and the fight continued on the parterre.
I think this is a good position. What about
Because there you can do way more damage.
And after that, Quinton managed to turn on his ground and pound, including knees to the head.
Yeah, that's
The referee raised the fighters to a standing position. Jackson tried to go to the legs, but missed a powerful knee to the head and a deuce of hooks in pursuit. Then a few more tight knees from Silva. The Brazilian hit a high kick to the head and again brought down a lot of knees to the head. Quinton was shocked, falls, and receives a powerful soccer kick to the head. He gets up and again misses a series of knees from the tie clinch, and the referee has no choice but to stop this beating. An unforgiving defeat for Jackson, and he interrupted his streak of 7 victories in a row. Wanderlei Silva, on the other hand, won the 2003 Pride Grand Prix. We will talk about the revenge of these fighters at the end of this video. Two months later, Rampage Jackson re-entered the ring to redeem himself. His opponent was the Japanese fighter, Akihisa Minova. He spent almost his entire MMA career with Pancrase. This was Minova's Pride debut. The difference in the dimensions of the fighters immediately caught my eye. Akihisa seemed like a toddler against Quinton. In the first round, we saw a takedown from the Japanese fighter, a couple of slams, and a huge number of knees to the head on the ground from Jackson. There was a good attempt to hold the guillotine from Minova, but the American broke free of the hold. There was a dangerous moment for Akihisa when Quinton from the side control blocked both hands of the opponent and landed a series of heavy blows to the head. The second round started with a good overhand from Minova and a powerful slam from Jackson. After a short side control, Rampage got into full mount and landed a powerful knee to the head. The referee stopped the fight, and Quinton was again on a winning path. In June 2004, he entered the ring of the Pride Critical Countdown 2004 against Brazilian fighter Ricardo Arona. In his professional MMA career, he fought 9 fights and lost only once. In his piggy bank was a victory over Dan Henderson. The fight started with good low kicks from Arona. After a short takedown, the Brazilian quickly attacked with crosses and a tight high kick. Again, Jackson's control on the ground and unsuccessful attempts to develop ground and pound. Up kicks to the head from Arona and several hard hammer fists to the head at once, which shocked Quinton. Ricardo was indignant that the referee did not stop the fight. Rampage recovered and continued to control the parterre. And in the 8th minute, Quinton landed a powerful slam and several finishing blows, which knocks out the Brazilian. Jackson gets his 10th win by knockout, and Ricardo Arona, after this fight, will go on a series of 4 wins in a row and even defeat Wanderlei Silva. After this Rampage fight, Jackson became a contender for the Pride Middleweight Championship, which Wanderlei Silva had held since 2001. The title rematch took place in November 2004. The first 10-minute period began with a clinch, where the fighters fired at each other with their knees. There were some good hook attacks from Silva, which he finished with knees from the tie clinch. Quinton had a takedown and controlled the parterre for several minutes. Wanderlei tried to block the ground and pound of his opponent, but still missed a few tight shots. At the end of the round, there was a shootout in the standing position, where the Brazilian was more successful. But at the end of the round, Rampage knocked out the Brazilian with a right cross, but could not finish it off. The second round began again with an exchange of blows, where Silva was more accurate. Quinton held a takedown, but then lost position and found himself on the bottom. The parterre ended with Vanderlei's kicks on the recumbent American. Silva hit with a tight jab and right hook, and then continued to knee from the tie clinch, and knocked out Quinton with one of them. Rampage lost the second time to the Brazilian by knockout, and Silva once again defended his world middleweight title. These fighters will fight more than once, but more on that in another video. In April 2005, as part of the quarterfinals of the Pride Middleweight Grand Prix, Quinton faced Brazilian fighter Shogun Mauricio Rua. He was a promising prospect who had 4 fights in Pride and won all of them. The round started with a good deuce of hooks from Rua, then the clinch, where the Brazilian dominated more. Knees from the tie clinch, a tight right hook, a beautiful scissor kick to the head, all from Mauricio. After a protracted clinch, Shogun landed a double hook and landed a takedown. The fighters continued on their feet, and Rua cornered his opponent and landed many knees from the tie clinch. Jackson went down and received several killer soccer kicks to the head that knocked him out. Rampage crashed out of the Grand Prix, and Mauricio Rua then won that Grand Prix by defeating Ricardo Arona in the final. Rampage Jackson next entered the ring in October 2005 against Japanese fighter Hirotaka Yokoi. The fight started with a takedown from Yokoi, but he ended up at the bottom. Then he managed to take a dominant position, but Jackson made a sweep and was again on top. He blocked both of Hirotaka's arms, landed multiple headshots, and finished with deadly soccer kicks. The referee stopped this beating at the 5th minute. Hirotaka Yokoi lost again, and after this fight, he had only 2 fights and ended his career. Quinton Rampage Jackson had such a bright career in the Pride organization. He did not become the champion of the organization, but the fans remember him for his spectacular performances, and of course, for his beautiful slams. But his career didn't end there. He successfully continued to fight in the UFC and became the champion of this organization in the light heavyweight division. If you are interested in an overview of the future career of Rampage Jackson, then write in the comments below about it, and we will make it for you. If you enjoyed this video clip, please click the like, leave your comments, and press the bell icon to avoid missing the next video. And if you watch this video clip without a subscription, sign up for the channel right now. We'll see you in the next video.